You don't expect to get fired while rocking your newborn to sleep. But that's exactly what happened to me. I was on maternity leave, 6 weeks postpartum. My daughter had just stopped crying after an hour-long colic spell when the chime hit my inbox. Subject: Position elimination, Torsten Consulting. I stared at the subject line. No call. No warning. Just that. I tapped it open with one thumb while my other arm held my baby close. She breathed softly against my chest. My heart did not. Dear Kelly Mitchell, as part of an organizational restructuring effort, your position is being eliminated effective immediately. I stopped reading. Eliminated. I'd seen that word used in layoff decks before. Always impersonal. Cold. Like swatting a fly. But this one had my name on it. The breath I took in felt sharp. Not panicked. Not angry. Just sharp. I read the rest. No severance listed. No offer to return after leave. No thank you for a decade of service. No mention of the $67 million in business I brought in last year. Just boilerplate legalese. Benefits ending. Contact HR for questions. That was it. My daughter stirred. I adjusted her blanket and stood there, still swaying instinctively. Then I opened my laptop. Access denied. My corporate email locked. CRM system blocked. Internal Slack gone. They hadn't waited a full hour before shutting me out. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was too busy trying to figure out why. I dialed Paul Torsten's number. Straight to voicemail. Paul, it's Kelly. I just received a notice saying I've been let go. This must be a mistake. Call me back. I ended the call. Waited. Nothing. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I sent a text. Paul. Urgent. Just got an email from HR. Please call. Delivered. Not read. I leaned against the nursery doorframe and blinked hard. My daughter opened her eyes, just for a moment. Big, trusting, unaware. She had no idea her mother's career had just been ripped out from under her. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. 10 years. 10 years of deals, deadlines, and client wars. I joined Torsten Consulting when it was a boutique firm. 15 employees crammed into a high-rise suite in Midtown Manhattan. Paul had been different then. Visionary. Accessible. He used to call me the closer. I'd walk into client meetings when talks had stalled and leave with signatures. I never missed quota. Not once. In my 3rd year, I brought in our first 8-figure contract. Paul gave me a bottle of rare Japanese wine and told the team, Kelly's not just our rainmaker, she's our insurance policy. By year 6, I had my own division. By year 9, I'd helped push the company over the $100 million revenue mark. My personal client roster accounted for over $67 million. I built that house, brick by brick. And now, they'd thrown me out without even a phone call. I called HR next. Straight to voicemail. I tried the extension for legal. Busy. That's when I realized this wasn't a glitch. This was planned. I closed my laptop and walked to the kitchen. My legs felt like I'd just run a mile. My phone buzzed. Private number. I answered. Hello. Silence. Then a click. They didn't even have the decency to speak. I set the phone down and leaned on the counter. Still no email from Paul. No explanation. No apology. I opened my personal files, the ones I kept copies of out of habit. Performance reviews. Client revenue breakdowns. Executive summaries I'd written at 2 a.m. while Paul was on vacation in Cabo. I wasn't paranoid. I was prepared. Each document told the same story. I was the backbone of Torsten's growth. I forwarded them to my lawyer. No commentary, just the facts. Then I held my daughter again, her small hand wrapped around my finger. I'm okay, I whispered. But I wasn't. I was humiliated, betrayed, quietly shattered. But not angry. Not yet. That would come later. For now, I stared out the window at the Manhattan skyline. Somewhere in that city, Paul Torsten had made a decision. And it would be the last one he made without consequences. I pressed my lips together and took a breath that felt like armor sliding into place. They thought I'd just disappear. But they forgot one thing. I don't vanish. I build. And I don't lose. You can only cry for so long before the numbers start whispering. After the shock fades, after the phone calls go unanswered and your name vanishes from the org chart, the numbers remain. They don't lie. They don't sugarcoat. They don't spin. They just sit there. Cold. Truthful. Unshakable. I laid my daughter in her bassinet, her tiny fist curled against her cheek. Then I turned to the files. Not company files, mine. Every presentation, performance review, sales dashboard I'd ever touched. I had them all. I always kept a backup. Years of habit. Years of knowing better. I opened the folder labeled Torsten Annuals. Clicked through the tabs. Q1 projections. Closed deals. My pipeline tracker. Then I opened the sheet labeled Revenue Attribution. There it was. $67.2 million. My name. My numbers. Client ID 49320. Deutsche Enterprises. $14.7 million over 2 years. Landed in a Tokyo boardroom after their previous firm botched an expansion plan. I salvaged it in 1 week. Client ID 11207. Caraway Biologics. $9.2 million. Referred through a contact I met at a panel discussion. Turned a cold handshake into a full digital transformation strategy. Client ID 88803. Walker Tate & Company. $6.5 million. My white whale. Took 18 months to convert. Paid off in spades. All mine. I scrolled. 10 more clients. Same story. $67.2 million. Out of the $115 million Torsten pulled in last year, I alone accounted for nearly 60%. And they'd fired me. On leave. With a newborn. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I opened another folder. Performance reviews. 2016 to 2024. Every year. Exceeds expectations. Words like irreplaceable, critical asset, leadership exemplar. Paul had written half of them himself. In 2022, he'd scrawled in pen across the PDF scan. Whatever we pay her, it's not enough. Promote immediately. I closed the file. So what changed? I got pregnant. That's what. I could hear Paul's voice in the back of my mind. You'll still be plugged in, right? 3 months off. You sure that won't slow down your momentum? We'll hold the fort. They didn't hold it. They burned it. And then they handed the ashes to someone else. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, no preview. I opened it. It wasn't a message. It was a memo. Forwarded from a blocked contact. No name. Just a line at the top. Internal only, resource reallocation strategy. I read it once. Then twice. It was dated 3 days after I delivered my daughter. Accounts previously held by KM, Senior VP Strategy, are to be reassigned as follows. 10 lines. 10 names. Junior staff. Analysts. A few second-year associates. None of them had ever led a deal. Half had never even met a client in person. Some were so green they still asked how to merge PowerPoint slides. I scrolled to the bottom. Client messaging to emphasize continuity. No need to inform accounts of personnel changes unless directly asked. My hands froze. They didn't even tell the clients. They were hoping no one would notice. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. The hurt wasn't loud, it was quiet. Precise. They wanted my accounts. Not me. They'd mined every dollar of value and cut me loose before I could complicate things with lawsuits or maternity protections. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. I forwarded the memo to my lawyer. Then I took out a notebook and started writing. Client names, contract terms, points of contact. One by one. The ones I brought in. The ones I'd nurtured. The ones that still returned my calls. This wasn't over. I wasn't going to plead. I wasn't going to send another email asking for clarity. They wanted surgical. I could do surgical. I could be the scalpel. And when the bleeding started, they'd know exactly who made the first cut. There was no press release. No viral LinkedIn rant. No rage-fueled threads. Just silence. That was the power move, not reacting. Not giving them the satisfaction of watching me bleed. Instead I built. Quietly. Deliberately. Like laying bricks in the dark. It started with a phone call from Evelyn Rothschild, EVP at Caraway Biologics. She'd heard the news from someone inside. I was holding my daughter when she called. "Tell me it's a lie," Evelyn said. "It's not," I answered. There was a pause. And then, low and furious, "They fired the spine of their revenue. Idiots." 2 days later, I got a DM from Jonah at Deutsche Enterprises. Then another from Simon at Walker Tate. One by one they came in, my old clients, my champions. Most of them hadn't even been told I was gone. Just noticed the emails felt different. The strategy calls were off. They reassigned us to a junior, one wrote. She didn't even know our expansion timeline. It's like the soul of the project is missing. I never asked for loyalty, but it came. Not because I begged, because they remembered how I made them feel. And because Torsten forgot what real partnership meant. I didn't promise them anything, just thanked them, told them I'd be in touch. Then came the wild card. Marlon Rees. He was my mentor 10 years ago. The kind who taught you how to break down a room with just a question and a calm stare. He'd left consulting years ago, gone into clean energy, but he still watched the boardrooms. I ran into him at a private dinner I almost didn't attend. "You look calm," he said, pouring us wine. "I am," I said. He nodded, then leaned in. "You gonna start something?" "Maybe." "Good. Because I've got 2 people you should meet. Angel investors. Silicon Valley types, but with New York discipline. One ran AI risk assessments for banking systems. The other owned a string of boutique venture funds. They didn't ask for a business plan. They asked for my vision. I told them in one line. Ethical consulting that treats people like humans, not billables. They leaned forward. That night, I filed for incorporation. Mitchell & Company. The name felt clean. Personal. Quiet power. The tagline? Strategy with soul. Our pitch deck focused on human-centered strategy. The kind that doesn't just chase quarterly spikes but builds legacy brands, rooted in purpose. I didn't want to copy Torsten. I wanted to replace them. Then came the team. I reached out to 2 people, just 2. Jordan Hines, my former director of operations. Sharp, disciplined, loyal to a fault. Left Torsten quietly 6 months ago after a clash over ethics. And Diana Ray, head of client experience. The reason 90% of our retention metrics had stayed so high. Left after being passed over for promotion 3 times. I didn't pitch them. I sent one line. "I'm building. You in?" Both replied within minutes. Yes. No questions asked. They weren't following me. They were escaping with me. We started small. 3 laptops in my apartment. A whiteboard in my living room. Baby monitor between client calls. We didn't announce. We didn't advertise. But the clients found us. Evelyn emailed first. "We're not renewing with Torsten. Can we talk?" Then Deutsche. Then 2 other accounts that hadn't even been on my radar. No lawsuits. No drama. Just precision. While Torsten patted themselves on the back for trimming fat, we were building muscle. Quietly. Under their radar. Every day, I fed my baby. Checked inboxes. Took calls. Built decks. While she napped, I laid the foundation of something they'd never see coming. I wasn't chasing revenge. I was building something cleaner. Something better. And soon something bigger. We moved into our first real office on a Monday. It wasn't massive, 1 floor, exposed brick, minimalist furniture. Enough light to make the place feel like possibility. There were no marble walls. No vision statements etched in glass. But there was energy. Real, relentless momentum. Clients flowed in. Press started noticing. One article called us a rising ethical disruptor. Another labeled me, the woman who made boardrooms blink. I didn't respond to either. Too busy hiring, training, delivering. But while we rose, Torsten Consulting collapsed. Slowly at first, then all at once. The headlines came in waves. Key executives exit Torsten in mass resignation. Internal turmoil at Manhattan firm amid revenue drop. I didn't gloat. That wasn't my job anymore. But I watched. Quietly. Strategically. Because you never know when history circles back around. Then the call came. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but something in me said, "Pick it up." "Ms. Mitchell?" "Yes. This is Ryan Lambert from Calder Ridge Holdings. We specialize in distressed asset acquisitions. Are you familiar with Torsten Consulting?" I didn't blink. Intimately. A pause. Then he continued. We're conducting evaluations, gauging potential interest for future asset transitions. Your name came up. Discreetly. I didn't say anything. Just waited. We'd like to meet. No pressure. No obligation. I told him I'd think about it. That night, after I put my daughter to sleep, I sat in the dark and stared at my ceiling. Torsten was collapsing. I hadn't lifted a finger. They'd cut their own throat. But here was the question. Do I watch them bleed out? Or do I buy the blade that did it? The meeting was in a penthouse office near Bryant Park. Lambert looked like every clean-cut finance shark I'd ever out-negotiated. Tailored suit, smooth voice, hollow eyes. He slid a folder across the table. Paul Torsten has been asked to step down. The board is moving fast. This is your window. I opened the folder. Financial statements. Asset lists. IP valuations. And then, a line I didn't expect. Interested parties may submit confidential bids on the Torsten brand portfolio, client databases, and proprietary frameworks. I closed the folder. This isn't just an acquisition, I said. No, Lambert replied. It's a burial. And suddenly I saw it. Not revenge. Not pettiness. Redemption. A full circle. Not for me, but for everyone they burned. The interns who worked weekends and were tossed aside. The women passed over for promotions. The clients gaslight for asking too many questions. This wasn't about owning Torsten. It was about evolving what they never could. I went home. I didn't say a word to Jordan or Diana. Instead, I built a file. Quietly. Consulted my lawyer. Drafted contingencies. 2 weeks later, I submitted a sealed bid. Mitchell & Company was listed as the buyer. No headlines. No fanfare. Just quiet execution. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Then the call came. You've been awarded the assets, Lambert said. Congratulations. There was no parade. No champagne. I simply nodded and said, thank you. I took out my notebook and wrote one sentence. Build something worthy of the people they forgot. And I meant it. We didn't revive the Torsten brand. We absorbed it quietly, pulled the pieces that still worked, left the rot behind. Some clients asked questions. I told them the truth. Torsten is no more. But the values you thought they stood for, we actually live by them. Most transitioned without hesitation. A few hesitated, then called back a month later asking to come on board. We didn't hire recklessly. We didn't overreach. We grew on principle, precision, compassion with teeth. To this day, I never said Paul Torsten's name again in public. I didn't need to, because while he sold out under pressure, I bought in with purpose. And every decision I made from that day forward, every hire, every partnership, every dollar reinvested, was rooted in one truth. You can lose everything and still rise. Not louder, but smarter. And when you do, you don't need revenge. You don't become the alternative. You become the only option. The elevator doors opened with a quiet ding. I stepped out, same floor, same hallway, same sterile carpet. But everything had changed. This time, I wasn't reporting to anyone. This time, I owned the building. A few heads turned as I walked in. One receptionist blinked, visibly confused. A junior analyst paused mid-conversation. 2 others straightened like they'd seen a ghost. I didn't stop to acknowledge any of them. Not yet. Each footstep echoed through the open concept space that once pulsed with ego. My heels didn't click, they commanded. The glass doors to the main conference room parted without resistance. Inside, the department heads were already gathered, uncertain, hushed. I took my place at the head of the table. The same seat I used to take notes from. The same chair I once presented billion-dollar strategy decks from. But this time I owned the table, I said to myself. Now, everyone waited for me to speak. I looked around the room. Faces I used to pass in hallways. A few I'd mentored. Some had looked the other way when I was forced out. Others had fought quietly, helplessly. All of them looked stunned. And maybe a little hopeful. I let the silence stretch just long enough to earn attention. Then, no one here will ever be treated the way I was. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. That ends today. I let it land. Then nodded, clipped and final. Outside the glass, murmurs swelled. Word was spreading. Kelly Mitchell was back. But I wasn't just back. I owned the name, the legacy, the building, the future. 3 weeks later, the Mitchell Torsten Group was unveiled. New name, new culture, no apologies. The transition was surgical. Accounts were restructured. Leadership was reevaluated. Anyone who had enabled the rot at Torsten was quietly shown the door. Severance, dignity, but no second chances. And then came the change that drew headlines. Mandatory parental leave protections. 9 months full pay. Job security, no loopholes. For mothers. For fathers. For caregivers. No one in the industry had done it before. Plenty said it was too generous. I didn't blink. They said that about me once, I told one reporter. Look where it got them. Inside the company, things shifted fast. New hires came with purpose. Veterans worked like they had something to believe in again. Every department pulsed with clarity. We don't punish humanity here. We protect it. I never gave speeches. I didn't need to, but I showed up. To every onboarding. To every maternity send-off. To every quarterly review. I showed up. One evening, months after the acquisition, I stood alone in my office. Floor-to-ceiling glass framed Manhattan in golden dusk. On my desk, a bottle, my baby's. Next to it, a burp cloth and a laptop stacked with reports. And in my arms, Debbie, now almost walking, clutching my shirt with milk-drowsy eyes. I fed her in silence. Below us, the city roared on, oblivious to the quiet revolution happening in that corner office. I rocked my baby gently, cheek pressed to her soft curls. My phone buzzed once. A client. I ignored it. This moment mattered more. The skyline shimmered. A storm was rolling in over the Hudson. Dark clouds lit up by the last rays of sun. I looked out at it all. The boardrooms that shut me out. The glass ceilings no one said were there. The men who thought maternity leave meant disposable. And I smiled. Not with spite, but with certainty. They thought firing me ended something. Then I kissed my daughter's forehead and whispered the words aloud. But it started everything. Here are some questions for you, our viewers. Have you ever been underestimated and used it as fuel to succeed? Share your story below. Do you think companies should be held more accountable for how they treat employees on maternity leave? If you were in Kelly's shoes, would you have bought the company or built something new from scratch? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming stories.